What is up, people of the internet, and welcome to a week in my life in UBC Electrical Engineering. My name is Avery and I'm a third year electrical engineering student at the University of British Columbia, and I'm going to share with you exactly what third year electrical engineering is like at UBC. While my morning routine plays out in the background for a bit, here's a little bit of context into my academic life for third year. I'm currently taking 5 courses this semester, but it's technically more like 4 courses since one of them is AppSci 450, which is completely online. This is the lightest course load that I've ever had in UBC engineering so far, as I'm only taking 18 credits this term. That being said, that doesn't mean that the courses that I'm taking are easy by any means, and I hope to prove that to you by the end of this video. Oh, and if you're wondering why I'm using crutches and wearing this boot on my left foot, I promise I'll explain this later in the video. Looking ahead to the main events this week, I've got a Transformers lab on Tuesday, a quiz on Wednesday, a job interview and a midterm on Thursday, and another midterm on Friday. Safe to say that this week is going to be absolutely cooked. Today's Monday and my Monday schedule looks like this. Wait, huh? Nothing on Mondays? Wait, this has to be a mistake. I'm gonna check something real quick. Bro, there's no way that I have a weekday off as an engineering student. That's absolutely crazy. Okay, granted, today is technically Thanksgiving Day in Canada, but one of the perks of my lighter course load this year is that I actually get Mondays off this semester. But it doesn't end up mattering too much because A, there are like 3 different holidays that fall on Mondays this year, and B, I just end up going to campus anyways to get work done. And that was the plan today, as I wanted to head to campus to get some studying done with my friends for our ELEC 311 quiz and midterm later this week. If you've watched my previous vlogs, you would know that I typically take the bus to get to campus, but since my foot is currently in a less than ideal state, I actually drive to campus now, which allows me to have my morning vibe session to my music on the drive there. You're gonna be seeing a lot of this during this week, just FYI.
Used to care about what you would think, but now I don't. Okay, I'm bad. I got one to eat, something to know is up. Little man got a free life on a heart. Yeah, I clean up good, look at what I've become. I bet I make my mama proud, proud, proud. Yeah, from LA to New York, out to London. Everywhere we go, we get the people jumping.
Traffic was pretty light today, as it was Thanksgiving after all, and I arrived on campus at around 7:40 a.m. I usually like to get to campus early even if I don't have morning classes because A, traffic is just a whole lot lighter, and B, I feel the most productive in the morning as well. My plan today was to focus solely on studying for my ELEC 311 quiz and midterm that I had later this week, by taking notes on the last few topics left that I hadn't taken notes on yet before my friends would be joining me later. Just for some context, ELEC 311 is our electromagnetic fields and waves class, where we learn about transmission lines, uniform plane waves, plane wave reflection and dispersion, and waveguides. Our quiz and midterm for this class is on the transmission lines unit, which covers concepts such as characteristic impedances, propagation, impedance matching, and how to use a Smith chart, which looks like this. I promise, once you learn how to use one, it's definitely not as scary as it looks at first glance. And I guess now is as good a time as any to explain why I'm wearing a boot on my left foot and why I'm using crutches. I might make a whole video about it after I'm completely healed, but long story short, I had a full rupture of my Achilles when I was playing badminton just before the summer, and I had surgery for it in August. As of filming this vlog, I could walk short distances without my crutches while wearing the boot, but anything longer and I would need to use my crutches. However, as of the recording of this voiceover a few weeks later, I'm starting to transition back into wearing shoes again, and I still have a lot of physiotherapy ahead of me. So if you've seen me around campus and were wondering what happened to my foot, now you know. My friends and I all joined up just before 1:30, and we went into a small classroom where I attempted to explain everything we've learned in this course to them and expose my knowledge gaps, which really did help a lot in determining what I needed to study more. We covered pretty much all of the course content before moving on to trying the homework problems again. And that's where we kind of got stuck for some of the problems, which is not a good sign for our upcoming exams. Well, we're all just aiming for a pass anyways, so we kind of just stopped working at around 4:30.
I passed.
Avery passed.
Yeah, I passed.
Yeah, Avery passed.
Yeah, I
passed.
watched him pass. He's like, yes, after each question. I was like, here I am, just ran every time. Avery's like, yes. I'm like,
Avery had like 5 yeses before I had my first 3.
I would
didn't pass.
I would fail again. Oh, you almost. Derek had 20%.
Wait, Derek got 20%?
I left campus a little bit after this, and when I got home, I unpacked all my stuff, ate dinner, showered, and went to bed at around 9 p.m. I know that's quite early for most people, but considering that I was going to have some very long days this week, I needed all the sleep that I could get. Alright, time for the actual start of classes this week. My typical Tuesday schedule looks like this: an ELEC 342 lab session at 9 a.m. and an ELEC 342 lecture at 12:30. I also have a mock interview with my co-op advisor today and a 3-hour lab session at the end of the day for my fast PCB design course, which I will talk more about when we get to it. Again, I got to campus early, just before 7:30, and I was just trying to get a little bit of work done before my ELEC 342 lab, which consisted of me only getting 2 out of 7 questions done on a web work assignment and reading the lab manual for my upcoming lab 10 minutes before it started. Once it was around 9 a.m., we headed into the lab room to complete our lab on AC transformers. In this lab room, we have a bunch of equipment related to electromechanical energy conversion and transmission, such as 3-phase power supplies, transformer boxes, load boxes, DC motors, induction motors, and some machines. In this lab, we were tasked with using the open circuit and short circuit tests to measure and model the equivalent circuit parameters of a single phase transformer. Aside from the extremely annoying and time-consuming lab reports that we have to complete after our labs that are only worth 3% of our grade, I actually find the labs in ELEC 342 to be pretty fun, as long as you know what you're doing and nothing goes wrong. As long as your equipment is functional and you don't short something in your circuit, the labs in ELEC 342 can actually be very enjoyable. We finished our lab an hour early, which gave me time to eat lunch before heading to our ELEC 342 lecture in IRC. ELEC 342 is a course all about electromechanical energy conversion and transmission. So think of things like magnetic circuits, transformers, DC machines and motors, generators, and single-phase and 3-phase power. In this class, Professor Linares discussed the per unit system for describing the equivalent circuit parameters in a single-phase transformer. To be honest, I don't usually end up taking notes during these lectures since I find it's much better to watch Linares' YouTube videos and learn from those instead. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below. After my classes were done, I had a quick meeting with my co-op advisor to help me prepare for a job interview that I had on Thursday for Ontario Power Generation for next summer. Since this was one of the first interviews that I had done this year, I just wanted to get a sense of what kinds of questions an interviewer would ask, what to expect going into an interview, and how I could prepare in 2 days' time. Once my meeting was done and I did a little bit more work, I headed to my last quote-unquote class of the day, which was a work session for the FAS PCB design course that I chose to take this term. For those who don't know, the Physics and Astronomy department at UBC holds a PCB design course each term where you'll learn how to make a schematic in KiCad, lay out all the parts on your PCB, and solder the components onto your PCB. The board that we were designing was supposed to light up 3 LEDs and have a 4th LED blink on and off every second using a 555 timer. All of us got our PCBs back today, and please don't clown me in the comments section about my PCB design. I know it looks pretty bad, and I definitely chose the wrong footprints for some of my components. Today we were just working on soldering components onto our PCBs, and by the end of that session, I was able to get almost half of the components soldered on. Albeit, my soldering skills were not really the best in this case, as demonstrated by the multiple burn marks on my board and from the melted plastic on the power jack. I left campus at around 7 p.m., stopped by the gas station to fill up my car, and subsequently drained my wallet in the process. Unpacked my stuff when I got home, ate dinner, cleaned myself up, showered, and went to bed just before 10 p.m., knowing that the week was only going to get worse from here. It's Wednesday today, and my typical schedule for Wednesdays looks like this: an ELEC 315 lecture at 9 a.m., an ELEC 311 lecture at 11 a.m., which is when I have my quiz today, and an ELEC 341 lecture at 3 p.m. And I still had my FAS PCB design class at the end of the day, just to finish up the soldering on my PCB.
Living fast, getting my hand in the bag. I'm gonna go slow, think gonna crash, and everything in the past, you don't want though.
As always, I arrived on campus at around 7:30 a.m. and proceeded to do some last-minute studying before my ELEC 311 quiz in a few hours. I will say that the clouds in the background looked really cool today, and I really hope that's an indication of how I'm gonna do on this quiz. At around 8:50 a.m., I started to head to my ELEC 315 class, which is a course all about electronic materials and devices. Pretty much, it's a course dedicated to how certain devices and materials work at a molecular scale, such as diodes, transistors, and dielectrics. In this class, we discuss PN junctions and what the band diagrams look like for a PN junction. To be completely honest, this course isn't really my favorite because I actually like to see the work that I'm doing as an engineering student, and the microscopic properties of how a diode works just isn't really my cup of tea. And especially in today's lecture with the ELEC 311 quiz right afterwards, let's just say that I really wasn't paying all that much attention to what was going on in class. After ELEC 315, we had our ELEC 311 quiz. And before some of our exams, I always like to ask my friends the following question.
Okay, what are we getting on the quiz, guys? What are we getting?
Guys, bets, class average for this quiz. What do you think it'll be?
Probably like 80, I'm not gonna lie.
We got a pretty smart class here, not gonna lie.
Everyone else is gonna get 100.
Each had class average prediction.
100.
Yeah, I'm gonna ruin that. I'm gonna ruin that. Carl, class average prediction.
If you don't include me.
Solid trade.
That's true.
Yeah, I think everybody's gonna do well except our group.
Yeah. There's just an aura of like failure on this side.
1 hour later.
All right, boys, what do we get on the exam?
Alright, so the quiz actually wasn't that bad, relatively speaking, as the class average for it was 59%, and I somehow managed to get 76% on it. But this quiz was only worth 5% of my grade, and the real boss battle would be the midterm that was 2 days from now. Once the quiz was done, I had a 2-hour gap until my next class when I ate lunch and worked on my web work assignment for ELEC 342. And then I headed to my last class of the day, which was ELEC 341. ELEC 341 is all about systems and control, discussing system modeling using transfer functions and state space, mechanical circuit systems, and feedback and controller design. In today's class, we were learning about state space representation for electrical circuits, which is a way to represent systems with multiple inputs and outputs. Professor Leo Stocco teaches this class during the winter terms, and aside from my discontent with using MATLAB for all of our assignments and exams, I will say that he is not a boring professor by any means. Far from it. ELEC 341 with Stocco is one of those courses where you always know, and also at the same time never know what he's going to say or do in a given class, which always keeps you on your toes. That being said, on the midterm exam that was a week later, I got 52% on it, and the class average was 8%. Anyways, I digress. After ELEC 341, I headed to the head building for my FAS PCB class to finish off the last little bit of soldering that I had to do for my PCB. I will probably make a video about my experience in this class for people who are considering taking it, but to be completely honest, it really wasn't all that helpful for me since I probably could have learned how to use KiCad from a YouTube tutorial, and I already knew how to solder. And even though I only had to pay the price that the FAS people have to pay, keep this quiet, I want to keep the $200 that I saved, I probably could have learned a lot of this myself. But it was still fun to design my first PCB. And again, please ignore my absolutely horrendous soldering job. There were many components that had the wrong footprint, my potentiometers were crooked when I soldered them, and so much else went wrong, so please don't roast me in the comments. That being said, here was the final result. Alright, the moment of truth, seeing if this works. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. And only one of the LEDs lit up. Oh, it's blinking, holy shit. No way. The signal LED is blinking. My other LEDs are not. So
We're chilling. We're chilling. You see this? You might see this one over here. It's blinking. And that's the 555 timer.
but my other LEDs are kind of screwed up. Wait, I think I just fried something. I saw a spark and now my LED's not blinking anymore. Let me see if I can plug it in again if it'll do anything. Well, mission accomplished, my LED blew out, so now none of these are working. How amazing. But at least I got it on video. Proof that it somewhat worked. So yeah, the only LED that was working blew out for some reason when I started probing the different test points on the PCB. It could have been that I shorted something, or because I didn't tune my potentiometers, or because there was too much current going through the LED. Honestly, I'm just glad that something worked for the short time that it did, and that I got it on film as well. With my PCB done and pretty much the course done as well, I made the trek back to my car, made the 35-minute drive home,
I don't really rap, but just talking to rhymes. Look real cool, but I'm awkward aside.
unpacked my stuff, ate dinner, cleaned myself up, showered, and went to bed at around 10 p.m. And just a heads up, tomorrow is gonna start just slightly earlier and end slightly later as well. Okay, it's Thursday today and my schedule for today looks like this. a job interview for Ontario Power Generation at 6 a.m.? Oh yeah, my goodness, I forgot that time zones exist. An ELEC 342 lecture at 12:30 and an ELEC 342 tutorial session at 5:30, which is when my midterm for this class will be held. Oh boy, this is gonna be a very, very long day. I woke up at 4 a.m. today just to give me a little bit more time to prepare myself and my setup before my interview with Ontario Power Generation.
Alright, so my interview is in about 45 minutes or so, so I'm going to start setting up now and maybe try to eat some breakfast beforehand. So let's see my overcomplicated setup for this 1 hour interview that I might not even get.
The position that I applied for was a 12-month engineering internship working at a nuclear power plant, which honestly sounded pretty cool to me as I hope to work in the field of energy and power in the future.
Alright, I've got everything set up here. I'm using my whole ass YouTube setup right now. Holy crap. Interview's in about 4 minutes, so wish me luck and hopefully it goes well.
The interview actually went decently well for the amount of preparation that I had going into it, or lack thereof. The interviewers only asked behavioral questions that were mostly centered around the prompt of, tell me about a time you blank. And I was able to answer most of them with a decent level of competency. I say most of them because there were some answers that I gave that when I thought about them afterwards, I either just didn't answer the question or gave very weak answers.
But yeah, I gotta clean all of this up, I gotta eat breakfast, and then I gotta head out to campus. So let's go.
But to my great surprise, exactly 1 week after this interview, I actually received an offer from them. And well, I'm gonna have a whole other video coming out soon about my job hunting experience and whether or not I accepted this offer. So make sure you get subscribed so you won't miss whether I'll be moving to Ontario for a year or not. With that aside, I left my house at around 7:30 a.m., arrived on campus just after 8 a.m., and started redoing one of the web work assignments for ELEC 342 in preparation for our magnetic circuits midterm tonight. In hindsight, I probably should have studied a little bit more for this midterm as I ended up getting a not so great mark on it. But having a quiz, another midterm, a job interview, and the fast PCB course all in 1 week definitely prevented me from studying for this just a slight bit. At around 12:15 p.m., we started to head to our ELEC 342 lecture. In today's class, we briefly covered the physics principles behind the concept of a linear DC machine. But since Linares didn't want to overload us with course content before our exam later today, he ended class a little bit early and my friends and I made the trek over to the Neville Scarf building to find an empty classroom to chill in before our midterm. And this was around the point in the day when the fatigue of 6 hours of sleep and waking up at 4 a.m. was really starting to hit. And it was hitting hard. But one thing that definitely kept me alert was seeing my final exam schedule come out. Upon looking at my exam schedule, it actually didn't look too bad as all of them were spaced out. The last day was on the 18th and most of them were at 8:30 in the morning, which is the best time to take an exam in my opinion. Anyways, just after 4 p.m., I headed to the Nest with my friend to grab some food before the midterm, as there was no way in hell that I would be waiting until after 7:30 to eat something. We went to the Grand Noodle Emporium downstairs and I chose rice, veggies, and chicken for my combo. Funnily enough, I actually ordered the combo that only came with one topping in addition to the rice, but the server actually allowed me to choose 2. Which I was definitely not complaining about. After our meal, we headed back to the Earth Sciences building for our midterm, and for this exam, I asked my friends a slightly different question going into it. Benjamin, what are you getting on this exam? 2. Evan, what are you getting on this exam? 3. Evan, what are you getting on this exam?
How much is the team portion then?
15%. Nathan, what are you getting on this exam? 15. Then it was time to head in. We entered the lecture hall. We took our seats. We got locked in for this midterm. And then an hour later, I came out with this, my individual portion of the midterm. Yeah, let's just say that I don't think I had the greatest grasp of magnetic circuits. Luckily, with the help of my friends afterwards, we were able to cook up the team portion of the exam, thanks to Evan Ing for sharing his answers with me, and with the individual and team portions combined, I was barely able to eke out a pass on this exam. Like, I think if I calculated out correctly, I think I got like a 51% on this exam. I'm honestly just glad that backwards replacement from the final exam exists in this course to help compensate for my less than ideal midterm grades. Anyways, after that extremely long day, I got home at around 8:45 p.m., cleaned myself up, showered, and passed out in my bed just after 10 p.m. Just one more exam left. Alright, thank goodness it's Friday today, and my schedule for today looks like this. An ELEC 315 lecture at 9 a.m., an ELEC 311 lecture at 11 a.m., which is when my midterm would be held, and an ELEC 341 lecture at 3 p.m. As usual, I arrived on campus just before 7:30 to do just a little bit more studying for my ELEC 311 midterm today by doing a Smith chart question and a reflection diagram question from the quiz on Wednesday that I knew I messed up on. For some reason, when I was trying to do the impedance matching on one of the quiz questions, I forgot how to correctly measure the distance from the load to the stub, and I knew I lost some marks there, so I just wanted to make sure that I could get it correct, as it was pretty much just a guarantee that there would be a question like that would involve a Smith chart. At around 8:45 a.m., despite the heavy rain, I reluctantly trudged over to the Earth Sciences building for my ELEC 315 lecture, which I really didn't want to go to since it was right before our ELEC 311 midterm. And it was also really rainy outside. I believe we were learning about diodes and how the band diagrams look for a forward bias and reverse bias PN junction, but I honestly don't remember as I wasn't really paying attention. Instead, I was stressing out over a stupid web work question in my 342 assignment that I had absolutely no idea how to solve, and also the midterm that I would be taking in less than an hour's time. After not paying attention for the 2 hours that I was there, we headed over to see me for our ELEC 311 midterm. Once we got settled in, it was time to ask this question for the last time this week.
Brandon, what are we getting on the exam? On 3. Evan, what are we getting on the exam?
Not getting 0.
2 hours later.
See, like, so much, it was actually so much theory, like, holy shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like, why do we have to derive an equation?
I know, right?
I was like, bro, what the
deriving, like,
I've
the
never
Z
seen
is,
that
Yeah,
before.
Zn is just the formula.
I have never seen that.
Yeah, that's what I
ZN?
did all of them. Yeah, Z but the first one, I don't know.
And let's just say, call me a fish because I just got cooked by that midterm. Like, my goodness, there was a ton of theory that I just didn't prepare for that exam. And there were a few questions that I just straight up didn't know how to do. We actually got our results back for that midterm quite recently, and the class average was an outstanding, drumroll please, 56%. After that abomination of an exam, I went back to McLeod to eat lunch and continue failing to do this one goddamn web work question that I had no idea required a spreadsheet in order to complete until 2 days later. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I'm projecting just a little bit too much of my anger right now. I then headed over to my last class of the week, which was ELEC 341. In today's class, we were going over state space representation, but for mechanical circuits this time. which was very similar to state space for an electrical circuit. I didn't really pay much attention to this class since I was just so tired at this point in the week, and I wasn't really feeling too great mentally either. On a side note, as a YouTuber, I am contractually and morally obligated to give people shoutouts when they help me with things in real life, so here's a shout out to the ELEC demon himself, Rohan, for helping me complete assignment 5 and project 1 for this class. Unfortunately, the runtime for this video is a little bit long right now for me to add a 30-minute poem explaining your greatness, but I think that deserves a video entirely by itself, and hopefully this shoutout will make your parents proud of you, Rohan. With me not really feeling the best emotionally and it being extremely rainy outside, this was the perfect time to break out the Love, Life, and Feels playlist on the drive home that I reserve for times like these. And honestly, I really did just need to feel what I was feeling, instead of forcing myself to believe that everything is going to work out. When I parked my car, I kind of just had a small little moment for myself to process everything that had been going on and take inventory of my mental state. Sometimes, things that you've been ignoring for a while tend to catch up with you, and well, today was one of those days for me. But honestly, this is just a part of being an engineering student that we all have to deal with at one point or another. So I know that I'm going to be a lot stronger after this. And after I ate dinner, cleaned myself up, and showered, I collapsed into my bed just before 10 p.m., feeling exhausted after an absolutely crazy week. But we're not done just yet. Okay, so I haven't actually vlogged a Saturday before, and I was actually planning on today being much more interesting because I would have gone to campus for a few things, but one thing really prevented that today.
Yeah, I think I might stay inside today. Don't really want to go to campus.
Let's just say that I didn't really want to go outside and turn the UBC highway into my car's personal slip and slide. Anyways, I had a few things scheduled for today. I had a co-op virtual workshop session at 9 a.m. and then a short design team meeting starting at 11:30, which thankfully was adjusted to be online due to the inclement weather outside. In addition to these, I also wanted to complete my AppSci 450 essay that was due the following day, as I hadn't yet started it and I still had no idea what I was going to be writing about. I'm going to be brutally honest here, the only things that the co-op program has actually done to benefit me in my job search are the meetings that I've been absolutely spamming with my co-op advisors and the VMock portal for resume feedback. And even that last one is a little bit of a stretch. And honestly, these sentiments were greatly reflected in this workshop, as pretty much everything that was said in it were either things that I already knew or just straight up bad advice.
Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes and I've just been thinking about what happened in that co-op workshop today, and all of that was useless. Complete useless. Why are they saying to start our job search in December when some jobs are already out and a lot of them are already out? Also, I realized how bad the co-op resume template is when I see other people's resumes. That's my review on this week's co-op workshop.
Once the workshop was done, I continued working on my AppSci 450 essay before a short design team meeting at around 12:30 with my sub-team. For those of you who don't know, I'm on the electrical and sound localization sub-teams of UBC Subbots, and we design an autonomous underwater vehicle that performs at the RoboSub competition each year. Currently, I'm working on combining our power distribution and battery monitor PCBs into one board, but since this week was pretty brutal for me in terms of academics, I didn't really have too much to update my team on. After our sub-team meeting, we also had a brief meeting with the whole team to update everyone on the progress of our projects and anything we needed to communicate with the other sub-teams. And speaking of, UBC Subbots is a great design team and you guys should definitely apply to join us when recruitment opens again. Shameless plug aside, I ended up procrastinating until about 3:30 when I realized that I really needed to lock in for my AppSci 450 essay. Even though it was only 500 words, there were a ton of things that we had to make sure were correct about our essays, like the formatting, the language that we used, how we structured our persuasive essays, the references we used, that it couldn't be political in any way, and a whole lot more. The topic that I had to choose a stance on and write about was whether there was a conflict between employer expectations and professional ethics in the engineering industry, since this course is all about engineering law and ethics. I really hope that this is the last essay that I ever have to write in my undergrad, because I really do not like writing essays, especially citing sources, which is the most painful part of any form of academic writing. At around 6 p.m., I ate dinner, cleaned myself up afterwards, showered, and continued putting the final touches on my essay before submitting it at 9:47 p.m.
I don't know how it's 0, but
I'll take it, and it's done. Let's go.
And with that AppSci 450 essay done and me feeling completely exhausted after an absolutely insane week, I finally collapsed into my bed at 10:15 p.m. As always, gently tap the like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever I release a new video. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.